189 on behalf of the federal government. I commend you for your service. Are you feeling strange? It's because you've been injected with 5,000 micrograms of Sandoz LSD. You are hallucinating this life that is around you. You appear to think that you are in the future, listening to a podcast show, whatever that is. I don't mean to interrupt your fascinating delusion, Theo. When you're ready for it to end, just knock upon that door. Oh dear. There doesn't seem to be a door here, Theodore dear. I guess we overdosed you. Don't worry. This is all just in your mind. At some point, the effects of the drug will wear off, and you'll find yourself dying. And when you wake, you'll be back to Harvard, 1969. Hello, my friends. It's me, your host, Duncan Trussell. You're listening to the Duncan Trussell Family Hour. If this is your first time listening, this podcast is dedicated to the beauty of Broadway and musicals in general. Today we have the star of Les Miserables himself with us today. Tony Hinchcliffe, known as the Golden Pony, played Jean Valjean from 1995 to 2005. He was up there on stage singing about what it's like, redemption, what it's like to be purified by the wisdom of compassion. And he's got a lot to say about how they used to use frog venom in those days. I want to feel the wisdom of the frog. I want to feel the wisdom of the frog. I want to feel the wisdom of the frog. Wisdom of the frog. I want to feel the wisdom of the frog. I want to feel the wisdom of the frog. I want to feel the wisdom of the frog. Wisdom of the frog.
Puke it out, bro. Bro.
Please don't call it puking. The frog evolved for me. A million years of evolution just to set me free.
Frog purr.
Hey, what you...
The venom runs.
That was Frog Purge by shaman DJ Vinny Torino, who just returned to Echo Park from Peru. And good news, folks, for the next 3 weeks, he is going to be administering frog venom at the Standard downtown. Use offer code Family Hour to get 10% off your suggested donation of $400 per purge. Shaman DJ Vinny Torino cannot guarantee that you will be purified by your cleanse. In fact, we unfortunately cannot guarantee that you will make it out of the purge alive. Any kind of biological damage that might happen to you because of the frog venom. Of course, these comments have not been approved by the DMT. We have got a wonderful podcast for you today. The Golden Pony himself, comedian Tony Hinchcliffe, is with us. We're going to jump right into that. But first, some quick business. This episode of the DTFH is brought to you by Charlotte's Web, the world's most trusted hemp extract. Friends, here's a personal anecdote. When I was on tour once, I went into Asheville, North Carolina, and thank God they were selling Charlotte's Web. Charlotte's Web was a supplement I took throughout the tour because we live in a strange dystopian reality where we're not allowed to say certain things. Even though they're true, I can't tell you how Charlotte's Web helped me or why it helped me, but thank God I found a wonderful bottle of Charlotte's Web tincture, and I really mean that from the depths of my heart. It's great stuff, and this is truly my favorite CBD company. Charlotte's Web. Okay, here's the stuff that I have to read. Charlotte's Web isn't intoxicating, but it does have some pretty powerful benefits working with your body's existing endocannabinoid system. They're an industry leader who sell broad-spectrum whole plant hemp extract with CBD in the form of oils, capsules, and topicals. People love Charlotte's Web oils and capsules because they support management of everyday stresses. They help in supporting restful sleep cycles, which is certainly something if you are in the back of a bus riding through the country, you would definitely need to have restful sleep cycles and maintaining a sense of calm and focus. Charlotte's Web hemp extract, either in oils or capsules, is a simple way to upgrade your day. They also make a soothing balm and cream infused with CBD. You might have questions about hemp extract and how CBD works. Research it on your own. You might be surprised by what you find. Charlotte's Web is offering a unique discount to our listeners. Jump over to cwhemp.com and enter code Duncan at checkout for 10% off your Charlotte's Web hemp extract purchase, which ships to all 50 states. They have a 30-day risk-free guarantee, so you have nothing to lose giving it a shot, and you should give it a shot. Really give it a shot. That's cwhemp.com and enter code Duncan at checkout for 10% off your Charlotte's Web hemp extract purchase. Some exclusions apply. See website for details. And of course, these statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. But wow, really excited about the future of hemp in this country. And we're lucky that a company like Charlotte's Web is getting really great CBD out there that has no pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, and is filtered 5 times for quality and consistency. Not snake oil, lovers. This stuff, mwah, I like. A tremendous thank you to my sweet Patreon subscribers. If you'd like commercial-free episodes of the DTFH, head over to patreon.com/DTFH and subscribe. I have finally connected the dots and can now stream. I've figured out a way that we could stream or video conference or whatever you want to call it to Patreon. So that is going to get added into the $5 tier, which is a way for all of us to hang out in video space at least once a month. I am there. It's all working. I've been experimenting with Adobe Character Animator and streaming to YouTube. It's working, oh sweet Patreon friends. So something I've wanted to do now for some time, I'm going to be able to do because I have this sweet new Mac, which is like having an alien artifact. Maybe you're not aware of this, but the Earth is dying. And 95% of the reason that the Earth is dying is because of the crow milk industry. This horrific chain of sadistic monsters and industrialized fools has brought our civilization to the brink of collapse. We must stop drinking crow's milk. There's no more time to ride the fence on this one, gang. It's either you're with us or you're against us. And if you're against us, then you're against the world. And if you're against the world, then how could you ever win? Because you come from the world. There's no more time to be nice. There's no more time to listen. All that's left to do is act. We must stop drinking crow's milk, and we must do everything within our power to stop the vile crow's milk industry from destroying our planet, killing our children, and wiping out civilization completely. Join me. Go to DuncanTrussell.com and you will find Stop Drinking Crow's Milk bumper stickers. These can be placed on anything you own. 100% of the proceeds from the sales of these bumper stickers will go directly to my Stop Drinking Crow's Milk campaign. We're going to stop. We're going to do it today. Stop drinking crow's milk today. And now, without further ado, everybody please welcome to the Duncan Trussell Family Hour podcast, my friend, the wonderful comedian, Tony Hinchcliffe. Friends, if you happen to be in Dublin, Ireland on February 14th or London on February 16th, you can see Tony's awesome podcast, Kill Tony, live. He's also going to be in Dallas on New Year's Eve. And all those dates you can find by going to TonyHinchcliffe.com. All the links you need to find Tony will be at DuncanTrussell.com. Now, without further ado, please welcome to the DTFH, Tony Hinchcliffe.
Trussell Family.
As I've been thinking about this podcast and what we're going to talk about, or what we could start off talking about, this memory keeps popping into my head, which is you at the Comedy Store. I don't know what year it's in because the years are a blur to me, but you just started off becoming a comedian. Mm-hmm. And you came up to me and you were like very complimentary to me, and it was really cool. And I thought, wow, that's awesome, man. That's cool. Really nice to hear a young comedian likes me.
Yeah.
Because I'm desperate for affirmation because I'm a hungry soul.
Right.
But to watch what's happened to you since then, and I don't know how many years it's been.
Yeah.
To watch this like crazy growth trajectory has been kind of awesome, man.
Yeah. I mean, I went to the Comedy Store to start stand-up 11 and a half years ago. That's how long ago it was. And I had this picture in my head of it being this, amazing comedy club, must be packed every night. Must be all these monsters walking around, of all ages and everything. And I got there and it was pretty shockingly, in a weird way, disappointing. I mean, I was still mesmerized by the building and its incredible energy and everything. But comedian-wise, maybe it was just the first few weeks I was there, I just wasn't really like seeing it. You know what I mean? There was a lot of like older people and this and that. And
what year was that?
2007.
2007. And where did you come from?
From Ohio.
Ohio.
Yeah, from Youngstown, Ohio.
Were you doing stand-up in Ohio?
No, I specifically went to the Comedy Store to start, which is a big part of the whole thing, because it's like, I had this image in my head, like if I go there and start there, people will get to watch me grow, and it'll be more of like a, instead of a big fish in a small pond type of thing, I'd rather be the small fish in a big pond and work my way up. I just knew that if I could get a job there, something like that everything would be okay.
Okay, well, I want to go back to the beginning when I was saying, and you said that was nice. What I wanted to say, and I stopped myself for some dumb reason, was just because in general, man, I don't mean this as like I hadn't even seen you do stand-up.
Yeah.
But in general, anyone who's starting off in stand-up comedy, the odds of it going anywhere are pretty slim, man. It's a very difficult profession to get into.
Yeah.
The canvases are limited because the canvases are the stages, and to get on the stages requires not just being funny, but like also some political maneuvering usually, or some good luck, or a combination of all of those things.
All of it, yeah.
Right. So I remember, and I had been the talent coordinator there. I don't know if I still was at the time, but I can remember having experienced many new people there and thinking, cool, but usually they go away. It's like you meet them and it's cool, it's awesome. And there's maybe some tragedy, or maybe there's like a realization. I don't know. And so I remember having that moment, like, that's a cool guy, but I don't know if how much longer I'll see him. That's the cool thing. Cause like Harris Pete do you remember Harris Pete?
I've heard so much about the legend, but I never got to meet him.
So Harris Pete was a door guy at the Comedy Store, and he was a door guy at the Comedy Store through the ups and downs of the store, and he'd seen it all. And he would say these things that were usually like, I mean, I don't know. My comprehension of reality back then was pretty slanted and blurry in general. So I was like projecting my own like insecurities on a lot of stuff. So sometimes people would seem bitter and maybe they weren't, or maybe they would just be telling the truth. Mm-hmm. And I would think, God, that's bitter. Mm-hmm. But I remember Harris Pete had this like wonderful bitter undertone to his conversations. Now when I look back, it was really cool. But he said this thing, he's like, sometimes they drive up here in Hyundais, and then suddenly they're in a Porsche. Right? It was one of the only optimistic things I'd ever heard him say, really.
Yeah.
Except for once he pointed to the ivy on the wall of the Comedy Store, and he said, I was here when that started growing.
Wow.
Which is pretty cool. But, so for me to like, it's interesting to see you pull up into my driveway in this like really fucking crazy doctor / like, I don't know, roboticist's car.
Yeah.
and know that you started at the Comedy Store as your ground floor.
Yeah, well, I didn't really get to finish my thing, which was like, and when I was there, it was sort of lineup wise and stand up wise. I'm like, man, this might be easier than I thought, because these guys seem like sort of like old and beat up, right? There just wasn't a lot of great comedians there, and I hadn't seen them yet. I hadn't seen Sebastian yet. It was just the first few weeks. But it meant the world to me to be there. And then all of a sudden I saw you for the first time. And the whole reason why I was so obsessed with the Comedy Store was because as a kid I was obsessed with Jim Carrey. And then when he did Man on the Moon and was Andy Kaufman, I became completely obsessed with the dark arts and like Andy Kaufman. And I went to the library and I read books about Andy like a little kid in the Never Ending Story. Like I would just read them at the library, Indian style.
Yeah.
Just obsessed with everything. And the Comedy Store kept coming up. And of course it's in the movie, like in the last scene of that movie, like, whatever, supposedly fakes his death and Tony Clifton comes out. Like, who is it? Andy, whatever, blah, 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 blah. So it just always had this mystique to me. And then when I saw you for the first time, that's when I really realized, like, oh my God, this place is the coolest.
You were like, oh my God, I could do better than that.
No, it was literally like you were the bridge to me, if that makes sense at all.
Cool.
Like you resembled this risk-taking type of out-of-the-box, cool stuff that I hadn't seen up until that point. And it was like the spark in which really like confirmed everything that my gut sort of told me about the place. Like, this is the place for you to get to, right.
It lets you do that.
And you were really the only person that I saw taking those chances and successfully taking those chances.
Sometimes not so successfully, but the beauty of the place is that to this day, it allows for that, experimentation. It allows for, it's a wonderful laboratory.
Yeah.
And thank God that Adam's running it like a laboratory still, because it is. It's a laboratory where once you got to be funny, but once you get in there, you're definitely allowed to have some beakers explode in your fucking face. And in fact, it's not necessarily encouraged. I mean, it's encouraged in the sense that we think it's hilarious to watch a beaker explode in someone's face. It's funny to watch an attempt at a thing, crash down. But that is like that was like one of Mitzi's great gifts to the world of stand-up comedy, is she allowed a place where there was a simultaneous deep respect for an art form mixed in with an understanding that you gotta fucking fail and you gotta take risks and you gotta like do things that are not gonna work to get to the place where things are gonna work.
Right.
So I want to talk to you about that. Mm-hmm. I'm interested in your work ethic, because you have a really strong work ethic. And I think it's curious in the sense, there are comics who have like really strong work ethics, but not all of them. Mm-hmm. There's various types of comedians, and some of them, like George Carlin, supposedly had like his next hour already written when he was doing his hour. Like he had file cabinets full. He would work 8-hour days writing jokes.
Yeah.
And you're one of those comics, it seems like. Is that true?
It's interesting. I'm one of the I believe in doing a lot of spots. I believe in going up a lot at night. I don't necessarily sit down with a pen to paper to write my own stand-up jokes. I'll do that for like, side jobs or corporate gigs, or, somebody offers me some crazy amount of money to write a roast for their birthday or something like that. Like I'll get those offers in and things like that. And in that case, I can grind those out almost immediately. Like it's like nothing. I just look at the statistics on the person or their jobs or whatever and just start going. So that's always there. But as far as my stand-up, my work ethic really lies in continuously going on the road, continuously doing as long of a set as possible, as I feel like the audience can truly withstand. And I've been doing that a lot. So, like, for example, last week I did 6 1-hour sets in Chicago. The week before that, I did 6 1-hour sets in Toronto. And the week before that was a normal week of like 4 or 5 1-hour sets in some other city, like it was like a Fort Wayne, Cincinnati, Cleveland, to where I'm doing a different city each night for a long set. So what's happening right now is, and by the way, I would love to get back to that type of, right now, I would love to get back to writing like a crazy person for myself all day. But since I haven't made a second 1 hour special yet, I'm continuously chiseling and re-editing this long hour that I do have, which, blessing and a curse, nobody's knocking down the doors for a sort of not famous at all straight white male that does, the covers, I guess one could say, edgy topics, right? But the good thing with that is that this hour just keeps getting tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter, because it's been 3 years since I taped a special. So since I'm doing this hour each night, I'm applying that crazy writer's work ethic to still taking the chances in the hour that works. So I'll tweak a little thing here and then tweak it the next day and see exactly how it all comes together at once. So what's crazy is that, a lot of famous comedians make a special as soon as they can, but me not really having a chance to make a special right now is sort of helping me. But, once that happens again, I'll reapply. I can't wait to get to that daytime wake up, go to the desert for a week, and really write, like start again.
Do you, to me, it's like, it's bizarre. Like, I have never been a confident person. And like, when I came out, like the way I did everything was completely fumbling and bumbling and imagine, it's weird. But you were like, I'm going to drive from Ohio. Did you drive?
I flew with just a backpack and like $40.
What the fuck, man?
Yeah, I had a brother that lived out here, and he offered me his couch to sleep on for a couple months. So I came out and wrote for my first 3 minutes set at the comedy store. You like did this
thing that's in the awesome 70s movies that starts with a fucking banjo or someone like this, you know what I mean? Yeah. Sentimental music.
Yeah.
You're on an airplane.
Yeah.
You're flying to fucking LA.
Yeah.
And somehow in your head, you have created enough confidence to imagine that you're going to be able to make this shit work.
I mean, you have to realize that the first time I showed up to the comedy store and saw normal employees wearing that comedy store t-shirt, I looked at them like they were the New York Yankees. Like, wow. I thought Jimmy Pidd was a god. To me, he was a god. He's just some normal guy, right?
Yeah.
But I'm like, how do you get a job at the comedy store? And I feel like it helped me tremendously by putting this place and that system on such a pedestal. It means more to you. You take it more seriously and you treat the sets more seriously. I think it applies for anything.
That's cool.
Yeah, anything that you believe in it 1,000,000,000%, because you're going to get that out of it. I still get it out of it every night. I was talking about it last night. I was just rambling to the bartender in the back bar. I was just talking with him, not getting drunk or anything, but I was literally like, how special this place is. Like you can build an entire backbone of anything off of a place like that, or just loving something like that. But yeah, to answer your question, my secret weapon has always been a boatload of confidence. It's probably something a defense mechanism that I created early on in life, being raised in a tough, really, 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 really dangerous neighborhood, where I was like one of the only white kids on the block. And if I didn't portray myself as strong and make fun of people, then I would have just gotten beat up and robbed and jumped and things like that. It was a really, really crazy place to grow up in.
What'd your parents do?
They were, my dad at the time ran an Italian restaurant, and really what they ended up doing for money was they were part of organized crime back then. My dad...
Are you allowed to talk about that without getting him in trouble?
I think I can now. It's one of those things.
You're gonna roll the fucking dice.
Well, my mom's not into it anymore, but she was really like a queen pin, I guess you could say, for a while. She ran all the numbers and everything like that. Now she's just a 72-year-old lady that's been out of the business for like at least a decade or decade and a half. But
when did you first realize your parents were involved in organized crime?
Very early on, actually, because my Italian dad was married to another woman, to his wife. He was married to his wife, and my mom...
Wait, your Italian dad had a wife?
Yeah, had a wife. And my mom had a husband, and they cheated on each other's significant others for 11 years behind their wives' and husbands' backs before my mom even got pregnant with me.
So, okay. So your mom and your dad, they were in an affair for 11 years.
Yeah.
And were they already involved in organized crime at this time?
No. The organized crime thing, well, my dad was, but the organized crime thing with my mom was...
I'm sorry, this is a dumb question, but when does crime become organized? Like, what's that? Is that like a file cabinet for a certain type of crime? Or?
It's really what they consider. Basically, it's like, as weird as it sounds, it's basically like white people crime. They call it organized crime if it's like Italians, and then it's disorganized crime if it's black people.
That's fucking racist.
I know. Yeah, I know. They're just basically saying they're disorganized.
That is so ridiculous.
Yeah.
That's exactly what a white person would do. Is like, I don't mean a white person. I'm white. I don't want to do white. I feel bad for even saying that, but like maybe you're bringing something out of me. It does seem like, it feels like something like I could see myself being like, well, let's organize this crime.
Right.
You guys, why don't we apply these principles I learned from Tony Robbins to this crime?
I think they decided, because it was like drive-bys and random robberies. They were two sort of different crimes, and they're both gangs, right? The Bloods and Crips are gangs, and the Italian Mafia is technically a gang. So I just think that's sort of how they labeled it, organized crime. It is a weird label now that you make. Yeah, it is.
They got to change it. Someone's got to change it. You need to add that to the list of fucking things you can't say anymore. Yeah. Or like make all crime fucking organized. It's an absolute racist statement.
Yeah.
I never realized that, but it's completely racist. When white people do crime, it's organized. Mm-hmm. Well, no, that's not true. There's like complected people who are considered like organized crime bosses. That dude in fucking Paris who like got a helicopter flew him out of prison. Anyway, I never knew this about you. And I never would have guessed that is your background. I know comedians generally have like fucked up upbringings.
Yeah.
But to imagine that somehow you were in the midst of infidelity and...
So it gets crazier real quick. It's not that long of a story. So they cheated on each other for 11 years. My mom gets pregnant with me. Her husband, who they had already basically... And, this is old school Youngstown. You know what I mean? Like, it's like old Italian people to where you don't really get a divorce unless you absolutely have to. So my mom got a divorce from Hinchcliffe, who's the father of my 4 older brothers and sisters, but they weren't basically hooking up anymore. And my dad and his wife weren't really hooking up anymore, but you just don't get divorces back then because they're Italian and Catholic or whatever,
right.
Even though they're all crazy. But so my mom told me that the guy that came to visit me a lot, that was my dad, which really was my dad, was Joey Smith, and don't talk about him with your classmates or this and that.
Hold on.
Right.
Hold on.
Yeah.
You were the product of infidelity.
Big time.
I missed that. I thought maybe that they had gotten married and had.
No.
So you were born into a family where your dad wasn't your dad.
Correct. Yes.
But you thought he was.
Well, no. The guy there was no Hinchcliffe anymore, so I didn't really think that guy was my dad. I knew that we called him Daddy Guy. That's the funny thing, is that was the name that I would call him as a kid, Daddy Guy, because all my brothers and sisters called him Dad. So I always just called him Daddy Guy, like this guy that's like this dad to people. But my dad, I knew was my dad, but they lied to me about what his name was. They gave me a fake last name on him. They told me that he travels for work. And then when I was like, I think like 8 or 9, maybe 10, I was on the school bus one day, and I realized that a car that looked like my dad's was across the street from my buddy Jeff Lewis's house, who we'd pick up. And I would notice this, this white, GMC Jimmy or whatever it was. And then the next time my dad came to visit, I remembered the license plate. And then the next day going to school, I looked at the GMC Jimmy and I matched the license plate that I memorized the day before to that license plate. And it was the same license plate. Fuck. So that day after school, I go to my mom and I go, hey, I noticed that Dad's car, is across the street from, Jeff Lewis's house on blank and blank street. What's up with that? And she's like, let's get your sister in here, close the door behind you. There's a lot of stuff I have to tell you. And she broke down the entire thing to me, explaining to me that, your dad's married to another woman, blah, 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 this and that. He is, he's part of a crazy business. So don't tell your friends who your actual dad is. This is his real name. It's crazy. I was bawling my eyes out at the time because I felt like I'd been lied to.
You had been.
And my dad lived around the corner from me and all that. And,
sorry, dude, bad interviewer question. How old were you again?
I think 9, 10, 11, 9, probably 9 or 10.
I have a way to do this. So I figured this out.
Yeah.
So kids who've had trauma, the thing you just did right there, 9, 10, or 11, people who've had trauma, they actually intentionally blur out the year that it happened because it's so incredibly painful that your brain, one of the many ways your brain nerfs the trauma is by blurring the temporal continuum.
Yeah.
So the way I figured out how to do it personally is what movies do you remember? If you can attach around that time period a movie or a TV show, you can Google that movie or TV show and produce the exact age that you were at when that happened. We don't have to do that now,
right.
But it's really, I've found it to be quite useful in my own reconstruction of my identity. But it's a great tool. Anybody out there listening, it's wonderful if you've blurred out some rough years. So, okay, you're between, say it again, you're like
9 or 10.
9 or 10.
Maybe 11. 11 at the oldest, yeah.
And so that means that for the first 9 years of your life,
yeah,
you were in the midst of what, for lack of a better word, could be called a conspiracy.
Yep.
Against you.
Yep. Yeah. And the few friends that I did share, who my dad was with, because he was a pretty we'll say, famous guy in the city of Youngstown.
What does that mean? What do you mean?
He was like the Italian Festival Man of the Year.
Okay, gotcha.
Like he ran a very well-known restaurant in Youngstown, which is all you need to know to be semi-famous in that town.
Sure, okay.
And it was interesting because like I told a couple of my closest friends, like, hey, my dad is, so-and-so. And they were like, they were like, okay. And then they would come to me a couple days later. They'd be like, I mentioned to my parents about what you told me about your dad. And they said, there's no way that's possible, that can't be your dad. Cause it's not your dad. He only has 2 kids. They're older, brother and a sister. And, so it's like, even then it just kept going on because, nobody knew about me. I was just a super, super duper secret. So like definitely this wall of confidence that I brought out to LA with me is definitely a product of all of this, overcompensating for trying to prove perhaps that I'm something special, that I have a purpose, that I'm a special human being. Dad, love me, Dad, right?
Whoa,
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Super crazy.
Oh, man.
Yeah. So the confidence is really probably just a bunch of pain and, insanity all wound up to seem like I have everything together. But at the same time, I also believe my confidence. It's not like BS confidence. Like I said, when I got that job at the Comedy Store, like I knew somehow, some way I would have a career. I really did believe that.
That right there, that little thing right there. I'm interested in that. Because I had that too. Mm-hmm. It was just different than yours. And when I think about it, go back and forth between, is that was that just like, was that delusion or was it real? But there always was this weird just sense of knowing. Like the way I ended up at the Comedy Store was just pure chaotic good fortune, which was that I came out to LA and went to Venice Beach because I'd seen the fucking Doors movie. And I was like enamored with Jim Morrison.
Really?
Just think of how embarrassing that. So I was telling myself a bunch of different reasons for doing it. You know, many people try to come up with a reason. Like sometimes you make up a reason in retrospect even, you know, but like now I kind of understand more what I was doing. But yeah, like, you know, like I had this idea of Venice Beach based on like maybe what it was like in the 60s or some shit. Mm-hmm. So I get out there and like I ended up literally like one of the first streets I drove down. I just parked my car for some reason and there was this like dude watering his lawn and I don't know how we started talking, but I'm like, yeah, I'm looking for a place. He's like, oh, my son's renting a place. But really what he meant was he'd been letting his son live in this back house and he was going to kick his son out and let me live there for really cheap. But his son was like a hardcore crack cocaine addict. And his friends were all cocaine addicts. And so then when I ended up at the place, he hadn't even moved out yet. Like he still had a sleeping bag on the floor of the apartment I was moving into. Wow. But I was like completely starry-eyed with that. I was like, I don't care. I'm like, whatever. I think he actually slept in the same house with me for a couple of days. Yeah. Anyway, he took me on this cocaine tour of Hollywood. I wasn't doing cocaine. I've never liked cocaine. But he gave me a cocaine tour of Hollywood. And I remember he drove by the House of Blues. And was like, the House of Blues. He's like, that's where how did he put it? He said the cheesiest thing about it. Something like, that's where the big dogs go. Wow. The House of Blues. And then it was so weird. He had built up this reverential attitude towards all of West Hollywood. It's like really sweet, but cocaine fueled, you know? And like, he showed me the Comedy Store. Mm-hmm. I had no idea about the Comedy Store. I didn't know its history. I didn't know about Mitzi. I didn't know anything about it, dude. It was just a big black building on the Sunset Strip that seemed interesting. And I needed a job. I'd inherited like $10K from my grandma. Mm-hmm. And I blew that on like just so fast. And I needed a job. So I walked by the Comedy Store and touched the building. And it's the damnedest thing. If I didn't feel the building, it sounds so absolutely woo-woo-y. But the building was like, come in here. Yeah.
No, you're talking to one guy that can absolutely believe you and relate to you on that.
You felt that?
I mean, I didn't physically touch the building. But again, I mean, I'm still enamored by it. That's the first place I ever went up and performed at or signed up for or went into. First comedy club I ever went into. First live show I ever saw was the open mic that I was on in 13 Comics. You know what I mean? And I still, to this day, I'll be looking around like, man, has that chandelier always been there? Like, it's like it never ceases to amaze me. It's totally different than everywhere else I've ever been. And I've been lucky enough to get to perform in some crazy theaters around the country, with famous Rogan. Places. Sure, with Rogan, with Jeff Ross early on in my career, a few times on my own. I mean, Joe and I have been doing arenas recently, which is a new thing. And you see like pictures of the Eagles or whatever, and Pink Floyd and Eric Clapton, and it has nothing to me on the Comedy Store. Like all the people and all the things and all the tickets and all the old pictures at all these venues has nothing compared to the Comedy Store. There's something about its diabolical black and red nature and subtlety that just it's definitely, there's something special there. There's some weird electrical grid underneath it or something bizarre.
What do you think it is?
I don't know, man. There might be some old, some old religious thing, some old furnace, something weird. There's something going on there.
There's like so like I've been to a few places that make me feel like the Comedy Store, that feels like the Comedy Store. And this sounds absolutely insane.
Right.
But so there's a place in India there's a city called Varanasi. You ever heard of this city? Mm-mm. So this is I think it might be the oldest city on earth. It's one of the oldest cities on earth. And it's where they do all the cremations. So the buildings are like many of the buildings have been darkened by the smoke from burning bodies over a very, 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 very long time. And so you go there and it smells like barbecue. But that ain't hamburgers they're cooking there. They're cremating bodies because it's a very sacred place. And they put the ashes right into the Ganges River. And it's like going to another dimension.
Yeah.
Right? So Varanasi feels like, I don't know. This is a really dumb math I'm going to do here, but just go with it, I guess. It feels like 1,000 Comedy Stores, you know? Yeah. Imagine the Comedy Store times 1,000. Yeah. That's what it feels like. It's got this like sense of heaviness. It's got this sense of a magical quality. Mm-hmm. It's got a sense of danger. Yeah. It's got a sense of darkness in there. But there's also somehow within the darkness, what's really cool about Varanasi is that the darkness is actually just a reflection of your darkness. Because what's happening there is one of the most natural things that could ever happen, which is that bodies are being transformed by fire into ash. And this is what happens to everybody. Mm-hmm. So you come to Varanasi with your fear of death or your anxiety related to your own inevitable extinction. And it can seem like a terrifying city. But it's just you that you're seeing. Similarly, I think the Comedy Store, many people have gone crazy there and I've watched it happen.
Right.
They've lost their fucking mind.
Yep.
There. I've seen it happen. There's a book about it. Mm-hmm. People get in there and they go batshit. And they go batshit in the weirdest way. And also, strange people are drawn to there who aren't even comedians. Strange people.
I mean, dude, I used to see it all the time, and we used to really hang out late there. There was like a summer we'll say 10 years ago where the inmates really ran the asylum.
Sure.
And we would just play.
There was one summer that
but where we were crazy. We were going every night until 5, 6, 7 a.m. We would lock the doors and just play. You know, we would do the BKO, the lip syncing Don Barris rock and roll band, where we would it was just crazy Jedi level improv courses, playing with Don late at night. But anyway, sometimes
don't but anyway that, because I think that's an important quality of the Comedy Store people don't even know.
Yeah.
I don't even know if it's cool to talk about it. But so it's kind of like, this is like, in my very high moments, I love to think about secret societies. Mm-hmm. It's a blast to think about and to contemplate. Could there be? Is that real? Would that be real? Right?
Yeah.
But as far as I've ever gotten with it is, the university system is interesting in that you have to apply to get into a university. You get into a university if you have some certain credentials. Perhaps you have some connections. And then in the university, you're given knowledge. And the knowledge that you're given is not, you're paying for it, but it's not just enough that you have the money. It's that you have been invited in. You've been accepted in. You've passed some series of tests and you've been taken into this special place. Some places it's whatever, bullshit, this bullshit college or that bullshit college. But to this day, we have the Ivy League colleges that are so very expensive.
Right.
And really hard to get into. People compete all over the planet to get into these fucking places. And you get into those places and you're exposed to high level information that is being downloaded to you through the mouths of brilliant humans. Because if it's fucking hard to get accepted into a university, how hard is it to become a professor at one of these places, right?
Yeah.
And so within these universities, there are people that no one will ever know. They're professors, except for people who go to that university. There are people there who are experts at the most obscure data sets, and they are not just experts, but they have a method of transmitting that information called teaching, which, changes people's minds permanently. And then those people go out into the world and become presidents or become politicians or start businesses. And so these invisible people end up sending these crazy waves through society, and no one ever knows who they are. So, in my very high moments, I think, geez, I wonder if there's something even higher than a university. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Some even more sanctified place. But to me, the Comedy Store replicates that dynamic in a certain way, which is there are comedians at the Comedy Store who are beloved and who are known in comedian circles, but maybe they aren't at the level of like Rogan or Chappelle, right?
Yeah.
But they are wizards, and they are like shamanic beings of like really incredible potency, magical fucking people who you're just lucky to like hang out with for a second. And also you need to be like, you have to be kind of like, I don't know what the word for it is, but if you like, you have to watch out, because they're tricksters. And like, if you're not prepared to be tricked and enjoy being tricked, then they could really like, they could potentially, drive you nuts. Right.
Yeah.
And I could think of like at least 3 people like that at the Comedy Store, who are like that. And so anyway, when you're talking about the improv shit that you're doing late at night there, that's real. That's like a real, almost like a ritualistic, ceremonial, like.
You're so right. I've never even thought of it this way that you're saying it before, but you're 100% right. And it was more than any other time, I've never felt like I had a master, if that makes sense. That's even becoming clear to me. Or a professor, I guess you could say, depending on how kung fu you want to be about it. But really, I learned comedy in those hours. It wasn't really during the day writing. I mean, sure, that helped. It takes everything, right? A perfect storm. But really figuring out what Don was doing in the middle of the night and how to keep those people's attentions and the lines that he would walk and how he would do it and how he would do it with a smile and how he would let us all play and contribute and yell from the back of the room and be part of something. It really was a very, very special, very different.
That's right. And real.
Yeah.
It's real. And I think for a lot of people, they don't want something real. Some people don't want real.
Yeah.
They want synthetic, artificial, domesticated, calmed down, soothed, whatever it may be. Like, to get around something real can really fuck a person up if they're deeply solidified in their identity or that they've been tricking themselves a bunch. It can be rough, man. So like, what's cool is like in other cultures, comedians happen. Did you know that? Like, there's like shamanic versions of comedians in various indigenous cultures. The comedian, the trickster appears in all kinds of mythologies. Loki, for example, in Norse mythology. It goes on and on and on. I mean, you could almost argue Judas, because you've got this being that is like perpetually looked at as the great betrayer. When someone betrays you, you call them a fucking Judas. Mm-hmm. And yet Judas is the reason we've got Christianity. If not for the betrayal, the crucifixion wouldn't have happened. You have like this weird link in the chain, and the link in the chain happens to be someone who was distorting reality by lying. And that created Christianity. So you have like all kinds of versions of this like figure that emerges mythologically that is always interesting in that it's a double-edged sword. Whereas like with many figures in mythology, you will see this kind of purity, right? This kind of like, they're just good, right? But whenever the trickster figure emerges, the mischief they cause creates chaos, but the chaos is somehow progenitive, and from the chaos, healing happens, or there's like good things come from the chaos. But the trickster figure never gave a shit about that. It was just an accident. The trickster figure was just making tricks, because that's what the trickster figure liked to do. It was just fun.
Yeah.
Fun, that sort of reality distortion in these myths. So when you run into somebody like Don Barris, right, and you realize like, it would be easy to like maybe not even see him if you were like somebody who didn't know about the Comedy Store. Or maybe you would see him, you wouldn't or maybe, who knows. But when you run into somebody like that, or like Holtzman,
Yeah.
you realize like, holy shit, man, this isn't just a comedian. This is like some kind of like shamanic teacher figure.
Big time.
But he's not puffed up, wandering around like, let me teach you about comedy or improv or anything. He's just doing himself.
Yep.
And as a natural result, people around him are either getting spun out or they're becoming like better comedians, which is
true.
pretty awesome.
Yeah. But that summer that we were doing that every night, I would notice sometimes, because we would hang out on the sidewalk or in the little driveway area or whatever, crazy people gravitating towards the Comedy Store. They wouldn't go across the street to the House of Blues. Sometimes they would literally walk right underneath that front patio canopy and just sort of stare at a wall or look straight up or look straight down or lay down or things like that. It wasn't that they were using it for shelter. I really believe that that place was drawing, that it draws, like you were saying, strange people there. And it really does, even if they're not there for comedy or even if they're not there for whatever. There's something there. And you know, one of my theories, while we're still on the subject, is that there's something about that laughter, that energy that comes outward and swirls around those walls, and the emptiness that happens during the day, and the contrast between the two, the expectations of the comedians and the risks that they're taking, and everything that's happening on that stage, and from the audience's perspective too, all that ga 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 ga, like that laughter. Yeah. Where does it go? What is that? Like where does that, what's absorbing that? Really nothing. It's what? Walls and corners and shit.
Yeah.
So I think that there's something to that too. Like people say the belly room's haunted or the main room's haunted or this and that, but maybe it is, but maybe that's also that. Maybe it's like, what is that weird trap of every night of the year? Plus the place never closes. It's not closed in December. It's not closed on Christmas. So it's almost, the study really is what happens to a place, the only place that we know of that every night has people laughing throughout it.
Right.
And they coincidentally think that it's haunted. You and I coincidentally think that there's a crazy energy that the building communicates with people in a weird way.
I'm not the only one who thinks that.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
But, you know, it's just like we're born in the West. And so because we're born in the West, we've got a lot of like really deep understanding about matter. People here really know a lot about atoms and science and like all the stuff they've absorbed through like whatever their high school or college curriculum was, mixed in with some like Carl Sagan or like whatever particular like celebrity scientist they've been reading, and they get really, really, really smart about matter. But a lot of people here, like they don't get the maps or the models for another way things happen in the world, right? So in another part of the world, like other parts of the world, these things called temples appear. And so these things called temples appear, and some of them have been there for a very long time. And within the temples, every single day, rituals are being done that are very specific and date back thousands and thousands of years. In fact, they date back, some of them before recorded history, in the sense that we don't even know where they came from. You can guess, and anthropologists have a lot of theories about it, but many of these things started off as like a spoken word that was told to someone else, that was told to someone else, that was told, and then that became, you know, religion, and then that religion sort of manifests in the physical world in the form of temples and churches, and within those things, the echo of some enlightened being gets sort of reverberates in time. So, and so in the West, you end up with a temple. You know, we don't call it, it's a fucking comedy club.
Yeah.
But it happens to have a ritualistic sort of attributes to it. Yeah. And it also has an initiatory system. You, if you want to like perform there, you have to go not just through like being approved, but there's many other little things that will happen to you there. You know, it has its own immune system and it will push people out. And it like, and it's a fascinating, amazing lightning rod. And you know, why did people come there who seem to have like mental illness or seem to have like a some deep wound? Mm-hmm. They want to get healed.
Yeah. There's something when you find out that people laugh there every night. Laugh. Like, it's such a weird thing to think about. People laugh there every night. It's a sound and a reaction that we make to being childishly surprised and happy. And it's a weird reaction.
Oh, but I mean, when you listen to like that kind of laughter you're describing, and what's funny is like comedians actually, if you wanted to, and I never tried to do it, but I could like, you know, like the way they have bird books. Mm-hmm. I bet I could write a book of like the various types of laughter.
Yeah.
Because as a comedian, you learn all kinds of laughter. You know, the polite laughter, you know, laughter when they feel sorry for you. You know, laughter when someone wants to think you're funny, but doesn't think you're funny. Mm-hmm. And then you know that precious, sweet laughter that you're talking about there, that stroboscopic laughter that sounds like a waterfall or sounds like some kind of, it's a very mystical sound. It's a very mystical sound. And what's really funny about it, Tony, or any comedians who may be listening, just go listen to like Buddhist monks chanting when they're like doing their, and you will hear within that chanting something that will remind you in a very distant way of the kind of laughter that you hear coming out of a great night at a comedy club.
Yeah.
Because what's happening is people think they're laughing, and they are laughing, but they also are accidentally chanting in a temple and standing on stage as a priest that's distorting reality in specific ways that are inducing an involuntary reaction in them. And that's why the place has a sacred quality to it, if you ask me.
Yeah.
Not to elevate comedians to the level of a fucking priest class.
And also, you're right, man. One of the 3 shows that I did on Saturday in Chicago at one point, and like I was saying earlier, like at the point that I'm at right now, I'm working on this crazy hour. And now I really believe in it. Now it's become a piece of art to me. So I don't like it when I necessarily get thrown off track. You know, I used to love crowd work, and I can still do it, and sometimes I do it, you know what I mean? But I was in the middle, I remember it being in the middle of like a big bit that I didn't want to be off track on the other night, right? But I heard this laugh that really stood out to me amongst all the other laughs. It was like a ha, like that.
Yeah.
And I literally I go, that laugh right there, that guy. I go, tell me the truth. Did you eat edibles and smoke pot before this show? And he goes, yeah. How'd you know? I go, I could tell by that laugh. That's like that's a laugh that I feel like you only hear from someone that's really, really, really stoned, like really high, like, like it's like a movie, like sound effect or like a cartoon.
Yeah.
But it turns out I was right. It's sort of off subject, but on subject, but it's like, it really stood out to me. And I just needed to know for my own confirmation, like, could anyone even laugh like that if they're not double stoned? I mean, I called it. He really did. He ate edibles an hour or so before, and he smoked on the sidewalk right before coming into the show.
Christ, double
and I just
stoned.
had to know. I stopped everything.
That's the worst. I hate being double stoned.
Yeah. But
I mean, the thing is, like, there's a place, I think, in any art where it goes from being an art to being something mystical. And, you know, in this current time period where we're at right now, in the current culture, depending on where you're listening to this from, there are aspects of human reality or data sets that we don't believe are real. And so we think, oh, that's bullshit. It's just hippie bullshit or whatever. And so we ignore it. And if you hear about it, you think, whatever, man, that's not true. If it were true, they would have quantified it, proven it. It would be reproducible in a laboratory. It doesn't work with our understanding of the way reality works. So, for example, we don't believe in telepathy here. We think that's a bunch of bullshit. We think maybe we can read body language, and maybe there's some subtle pheromones or something that gets released from people, which would allow you to intuit some aspect of their consciousness. But the idea that you could potentially actually read someone's thoughts or see through a person's body and see like trapped energy in there or whatever you want to call it is absolute bullshit, bunk, woo-woo, nonsense, no fucking way. So I think many comedians have these experiences on stage that are mystical, and they have epiphanous moments up there, or transmissions or realizations. I think some comedians get on stage and they're not there anymore. Something comes through them in that moment and they know it, but because they don't want to fuck with that. They don't want to think about it maybe, or they're worried if I think about that element of it too much, it'll fuck up the other part of it, or I don't know.
Right.
But I think that like many artists have a moment when they're in the middle of creation of this thing or that, where they experience something that doesn't really make sense based on how we understand the world to be, you know? And that definitely happens with comedy, for sure. Because in the same way, like a university professor ends up sending out a signal that shifts people's consciousnesses, and those people go into society and shift society. And a great comedian can end up impacting the world just by demonstrating honesty.
Yeah.
You know, just for a lot of people to be in the presence of honesty in the way that a comedian can channel it, that'll change your life forever. You know, just to see that, just that is enough to like make a wounded person walk out of a comedy club and be like, oh, fuck. Wow. It's okay to be a human.
Right.
It's okay to say blasphemous things. Yeah. It's okay to shine a light into the dark bowers of society, you know?
Yeah.
But it has to me, and I don't remember where it was. I think it's in the La Jolla Comedy Store. Maybe I saw it in Mitzi's office. And I remember like just at the time, all these things I read and learned, and a lot of the stuff she told me, man, I'm just now understanding it because I'm so goddamn slow sometimes. But I can remember, I think it was a letter from her to a comedian. And it was something on the lines of like, I'm really going to butcher it. But the thing that she was writing to the comedian was, well, you know what's behind, the thing behind this is love. That's what she was saying. You know, that's what it is. You want to know the secret? Love. The secret is love. The secret is that behind the joke, behind the genius, behind the fucking art, behind the well-crafted thing, you're looking at somebody who is in love with doing comedy. They love it. They can't stop doing it. That's it. That's it. Love. And so even though what they're saying might be one of your absolutely offensive jokes, Tony, you should be ashamed of yourself for some of the things you say.
I really believe what you just said. And it's crazy because I do this thing the past, 10 months to a year, where my opening line, no matter what, no matter who was on before me or pretty much anything, I have like almost like a line, like a pro wrestler or something like that. I've sort of trademarked my own little thing so that when people see me a second time, they remember, blah, 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 blah. And I always say, nice to meet you guys. My name's Tony Hinchcliffe, and I'm one of the top young rising comedians in the world. And it started as me almost saying it to be almost an asshole, right?
Sure.
And for my own entertainment. But it started getting a massive laugh every time I would do it.
Because it's audacious. It's ridiculous.
Exactly. And it's not, and by the way, this is in front of strangers. You know what I mean? This isn't necessarily, you know, the Joe Rogan crowd or my crowd that knows me. It's not on the road. And by the way, when I do it on the road or on those shows, it's insanity. Because they... And I always thought, like, you know, once it worked better than I thought it would, so I did it the next night and the next night and the next night, I always thought like, oh, I'm making them comfortable. They can relax in their seats because of my extreme confidence has been established right from the get. They're like, wow, this guy's got something good. If he's starting off like that, what is it? But it really makes me think about what you just said about love, because I'm showing them immediately that, right? At 1,000 miles an hour, I'm showing them how much I love this by saying, you know.
Well, you can't do it unless you actually have. If you get up there and say that with any kind of malice behind it, any kind of like bullshit, narcissistic egoism, or if like the majority of the, I mean, we all have a little bit of that in us. But if like the thing fueling whatever the fuck it is that you're saying up there, is not love. If the thing that's fueling what you're saying up there is
trickery, trying to fool them,
right.
they'll smell it.
Yeah, they can smell it, and also, it just is like, you know, it's the difference between someone. It's the difference between I guess you could say, an inflated mattress and an uninflated mattress, right? Like if it's a big fucking difference, right? So I can tell when someone is inflating whatever it is they do with love, and I'm not, and again, man, all this stuff, it can end up sounding really like either naive or sanctimonious or ridiculous or whatever. I'm not saying, every comedian that gets on stage is a professor of love.
Right.
No, but I'm saying, like, if you're looking at a comedian who's funny and they're doing a really funny joke that's making the crowd do that kind of mystical laughter that borders on chanting.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that comedian loves the audience. And I'm not saying the comedian necessarily loves themselves. And I'm saying the comedian in that moment loves anything in that moment. But I know for sure that comedian loves comedy. Because there's no fucking way you're going to refine a joke over time unless there's something in that practice that you love.
100%.
Period.
And that's one of the weird things about me is I love comedy to like a crazy degree. I remember the first time I ever did a gig with Joe Rogan on the road. We barely knew each other at all. And I remember on the plane ride, he goes, so man, I don't really know anything about you. Like, this is like 6 years ago. I remember specifically him going, well, what else are you, so what about you, Tone? Like, what are you into? I'm like, well, I'm really just obsessed with comedy. And he's like, yeah, but like, what about like hobbies and like, you know, other, looking back at it now and realizing life and all these things. And, but at the time that was it. At the time that was it. Like it was my obsession. My obsession was with everything, like the writing during the day and the performing at night and figuring out improv and maybe this musically funny stuff and this and this and this. And also just being a huge fan of the art form. My mind was so blown when I got to see you and, you know, and Rick Ingraham the first time I saw him. And like, again, you two really like the bridges of this thing where I'm like, look at that. Look at these guys. They must be in their late 20s, early 30s. Yeah. This is crazy. Yeah. It was mind blowing.
Well, it's mind blowing because like you know, I've always like, I got lucky, man, in my life. I've run into different types of artists and I've run into people who literally, I know there's someone out there, man, who is one of the smartest people I've ever met in my life, and who is intentionally, completely not interested in any kind of fame, does not want to be known, wants to live in the shadows, you know, and like I think probably judges me for my the fact that I put myself out there, and that's fine, I don't care, but it's really cool to meet people who are doing a thing and the reason they're doing it, even though they, like anybody, would want success and would want this or that to come from it, but there's some initial thing that is transcending material desire. And so, you know, that's what happens at the Comedy Store is you meet people who have ambition, but who also don't really that whether or not they were making money it's not going to stop what they're doing. Mm-hmm. And that's a really, really powerful way to be, a really powerful thing to witness, you know. I think that like oh wait, I thought of something while you're talking. How fucking terrifying is that when Rogan pounces on you and decides to start taking you around with him. Like, how crazy is that moment when you're like, what the fuck?
It was crazy. I mean, like, it felt like some type of prank, or like I was in on some like reality show or something weird, hidden cameras. Like, that's what it felt like in the beginning, because I was just sort of scooped up out of nowhere. I mean, Ari couldn't do a gig or something like that, and none of you guys were available. You, Diaz, something, you know, and I guess Joe asked Ari, is there anybody, you know, coming up the ranks or anything like that? I got to get somebody, and Ari put my name in there, and boy, oh boy, if it didn't just, you know, lock it in. And so, but I didn't know Joe. I mean, that's a real conversation that we had on our first airplane trip together. It's like, what else are you into, dude? Like, what are your hobbies? I'm like, well, right now, really nothing at all.
Yeah,
it's
man.
It's just comedy. I do a lip syncing band with Don Barris from the hours of 2 a.m. to like 4 a.m. But that's really, you know, it. I write for this show. I write for the Comedy Central Roast, but that's only a few weeks out of the year. So
that's one of the funny things about Joe. Like now that he's become like this, like, I don't know what you would even call it. Maybe there's not a word for it now. Like, you know, podcaster is certainly a great word for it, but that's not the right word for it. Whatever the fuck it is, man, I don't know. But I think one of the crazy things about Joe that maybe people are only slightly aware of is this like aspect of him where he just like scoops up comics and then like begins this like weird kind of like mentorship with them.
Yeah, more than perhaps any comedian that I've ever even heard of, right? Maybe Rodney Dangerfield did it, right? With the old Dangerfield specials, like way back. Like, hey, meet my friends, you know, whatever that was, the HBO things.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't really think there's anybody that really does that. In fact, on the contrary, not throwing anybody under a bus here, but I would say that a few of the top comedians don't take freak openers and don't want someone really hilarious in front of them. And not only does Joe tend to, you, Ari, Diaz are three of my favorite comedians, period, right? So, and people know this. Like, people are aware that Joe takes freaks with him because he wants to get the show started with a bang. And not only that, he wants them to get better. And he makes them better by inspiring them just from doing what he's doing. He
doesn't fuck around, man. Like, that one of the cool things, like, I've like, you know, right now I'm lucky because like I'm studying like this type of Buddhism with a teacher who's like in a lineage of a really interesting lineage of Buddhism. And what's really cool about him is that he doesn't fuck around. Like, it's not like what you would want it to be if you wanted to be lazy, in the sense that it's like it's permissive in the sense that like you're not going to get guilt tripped or whatever for like sort of being lackadaisical or something like that. But simultaneously, like, there's this real like sense of like I don't know how to put it. It's serious. Like, there's a sense of seriousness to it, which is like, look, you like this is serious and also not. And with comedy, what's more fucking serious than comedy while simultaneously not being serious at all?
Yeah.
But Rogan, when he's decided to like start, I'm sorry if this is embarrassing, Joe, if he listens to this, I don't know. I don't mean to embarrass him. Because we're all, like, many of us are like very, very deeply indebted to him for this.
Yeah.
But when his technique is not just do whatever you want, man. There's like a real sense of like, this is serious. Like, this is real. Like, work on this. This means something, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But then it's also mixed in with, it's silly. Like, he's, you know, it's Joe. He's fucking crazy.
Right.
So it's like this weird mixture of a tactic or a technique. But to me, it was just like, you know, I was on a stage in a weird, dark temple telling like jokes that in retrospect, maybe they weren't that great. Maybe they were. I don't know. And one of the fucking lead warlocks at the temple is like, come, let me show you something. You know?
Yeah.
And then suddenly you find yourself in the preposterous situation of becoming an apprentice to a fucking magician. And then the next thing you know, because of that apprenticeship in one way or another, you know, your life like alters, you know, in a really beautiful way.
No doubt about it. In many, many, many multiple ways. Working with Joe led me to, you know, really not just work, not just that stuff, but life, really. Because that to look back and to think of him asking me, what are my hobbies? What do I like to do to get away from comedy? And I didn't even have an answer because I was so just one tracked and one focus that I didn't have anything to even talk about on stage. I had no, I mean, it was ridiculous. I was doing nothing other than writing whatever I read in the newspaper. You know, I would write jokes about it, literally. Like, it was so silly. And, you know, so it's a full program. You know what I mean? You see a guy like that that's an amazing father, an amazing husband, an amazing hunter. He kills his own food, brings it back, eats, feeds, provides for his family with that. Unbelievable mentor to comedians and unbelievable comedian, host, podcaster, right? Actor,
Yeah.
We've seen that. News radio, it's like you forget. Fear Factor host, like it's like crazy. So it just spreads throughout everything. And then you find out about, you know, hobbies and cool things to do and things to get better at to make your life better. And then it's almost like meditating so that you could take a break and your brain's stronger when you get back to comedy, if that makes sense.
Well, it's like what I love is like there's patterns that appear in society, right? And some of the patterns become commercialized. So like, so we see the pattern of like student-teacher relationships, and it gets commercialized through like universities, you know? So there's a commercialized version of this pattern that has existed way before there were universities, right? Which is like, you know, like for a teacher, for whatever reason, decides, oh, I'm going to teach this person something, right? And they have some weird way of picking out the person and deciding, you're the one I'm going to teach now. And, you know, you see it in a bunch of different things. Like, what I love, to me, what's cool about Joe, man, I don't mean to keep tooting the fucking Joe Rogan horn. I don't want to sound like a goddamn slavish sycophant, but truly, I mean, it's like, if I'm, like, there's no way I'm going to be able to, like, look at, like, much of, like, a lot of what I've got, I owe to my teachers. You know, and that's just fine to say. I don't think there's anything embarrassing about that at all. Like, we should say that, you know, but what's really fucking funny is with Joe is that, you know, he has sort of demonstrated a system of teaching that is weirdly similar to the more traditional forms of teaching you get in Buddhism. And it's really, really fascinating to me to see those two things. So in the way that, like, the Comedy Store doesn't know it's a temple, but it is, Rogan, maybe he doesn't completely understand that he's accidentally fallen into the place of being some kind of, you know, mystical teacher, which he is. And he'd probably cringe and like roll his eyes at me saying that. I don't know. But like, I love that shit. And also simultaneously, he's just like a normal dude, right? In the same way, like the person who's teaching me this shit, normal guy, you know? Yet, I love the fact that these patterns appear. And to me, what I love about it especially is that it teaches me to open my eyes wider. Because sometimes the thing that you're looking for is standing right next to the thing you're actually looking for. You know what I mean? But because you've constructed in your mind a way this thing must look, you can't see it. It's invisible to you.
Right.
Which is fucking hilarious, you know?
Yeah. That's some wild stuff. You're absolutely right.
It's pretty trippy, man. I mean, it's just an interpretation of it. Right. Whatever. It's not like real or not real, but I do know that like in any other goddamn thing, there's apprentices and you learn something and then, you know, that's the way it is. It's just
and I know for a fact that he gets inspired from the reverse. You know what I mean? He sees.
Did he come into your room at night and punch the shit out of you like at 1 a.m.?
No, he never did that. He did that to you?
Oh, yeah, man. God damn it, Tone. What about the fucking improv thing?
What?
You're supposed to yes and. God damn it.
I forgot that
yes and.
I forgot about comedy.
Me too. It's easy for me to forget.
Yeah. No, yeah, he would beat me
no,
up.
It's too late. It's too late. Yeah, man. I am really interested in something that I wanted to talk to you about, which is and maybe it's shifting. I don't know. And I haven't been out in the clubs or in the road for a while now, man. But do the audiences seem different to you at all? Is there a sense of like, some kind of like shift in like the moods of audiences, or like a feel? I know, like when I run into people on the street or talk to people, everybody seems like a little anxious right now. They seem a little kind of like nervous or something.
I've been doing a lot of shows lately, and a lot of those shows are on the road, like I said. And yes, there is. And one thing that I've noticed is people that know what they're into, what they've signed up for, are going to really have fun. And the people that don't know exactly what they're going to it's a riskier business. And what I mean by that is the people that, for example, know that they've come out to see me, that know me from my podcast or whatever. They know like, ooh, this is exciting. We're going to get to laugh about some crazy stuff tonight. Perhaps there's a joke about mass shootings or something like that that has twists and things that we won't see coming, but good, solid subject matter that we can't hear on a comedy channel right now.
Right.
But with that sometimes comes, for example, I did those Toronto shows were at a festival, and part of a festival is that deal specifically was they could just add shows whenever they wanted, and they would just fill them up with people that already had passes that didn't necessarily know the show that they were going to.
Right.
And those shows, groans, like I would look out in the audience and sort of feel a little bit of hatred at times, because I sometimes like to talk about things that push and pull people away that most people can't talk about. I don't know what I can say without really giving everything away,
right.
But the point is...
You do really offensive comedy. A lot of your jokes are like... as far away from like what you would call politically correct or
exactly
anything that you could... Like you do jokes on stage that if you were on a show, or if you had some kind of like
big show, it would get canceled.
You might get fired.
Yes, exactly that. And so, for example, like in Toronto, I ended up getting tagged in this thing, and I click on it, and it was a ridiculous write-up, a review of one of my shows from some critic that, it's hilarious. Calls me a misogynist and an egomaniac and a this and a that, because he doesn't realize why the thing I said earlier was funny. Top young rising comedian in the world, because it makes it funnier when I make fun of myself later, and it's just a crazy thing to say at the top of a set anyway, right? But he doesn't. You know what I mean? So they're writing like egomaniac bragging from the top of his set, even though I couldn't find anywhere on Google where it even says he's the top young rising comedian in the world. Looked through 5 pages, couldn't find it. Goes on to his misogynistic rant about why there isn't a woman president and why women this and this about Amy Schumer. You know what I mean? Like just giving stuff away, writing this scathing review that he thinks is, gold, because he thinks I'm going to complain about it and put it out there on social media and get his, little blog hits. No, it's impossible to find.
Okay.
But, my point is that, those people just can't wait. They just can't wait to hate something, to find someone. They think they're police officers, and it's like, ooh, I got a case, boss. Look at this. Look at this report that I have. There's that out there. There's some people that are looking for the escape of the times, which are different, right? And there's some people looking to be the police officers for the times of what's happening. And it goes both ways, that the break is more exciting for the people that paid for it, that really know it, that know that they want that escape for an hour and 20 minutes or whatever. And it's the hour 20, it's that much more of a disgusting experience for someone that wants to, go watch Nanette or something like that. It's like those types of like non-comedy comedy thing or whatever the hell's happening. I don't even get it. I can't even stare directly at it when I hear about it. Like, I don't want to hear about it.
It's just it's like one of the it's like, comedy's a tree, and the tree grows branches, and some of the branches go to war with the other branches, and it's always been like that. It's just a new branch growing on the tree. And it's like, man, the thing of like, I guess like I've watched it now go through so many different iterations, and I've watched the inevitable simultaneous adulation for some new branch mixed in with the simultaneous, not just negation, because one of the very funny things about comedians in general is we're all hyperbolic. So if we dislike something, a better way to put it would be, when I was a talent coordinator, comedians, they don't just cancel their set. Like if a comedian's calling to cancel the set, they don't say, I just don't feel good right now. I'm feeling bad and I don't feel funny and I don't want to come in. Or I just broke up with my girlfriend. Or I'm too fucking high and I'm paranoid right now. They don't say that. They call and they were just like their parents were in like a plane crash. They lie. Right. And they lie in the dumbest, most obvious way. And they don't realize, like, when I was the talent coordinator, I was always hearing cancellations. And they also have created, because comedians kind of had this like innately narcissistic bend in their personality. So in their mind, canceling is like, oh shit, they just like shot a fucking hole in the wing of a plane.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like the whole show is going to go up in flames without them. They don't realize that it's just like, okay.
That everything bumps up, yeah.
I'll call someone else.
Yeah.
So they have to like make a big deal out of it, and then they're overtly apologetic because many of them have gone through various traumas as children. A lot of them have been physically abused, sexually abused, psychologically abused. Generally, there's some parental figure who had either the effect of abandoning and neglecting them, or like dominating them. So any type of authority figure to them, they project that. So you end up with like these wonderful artists who have generally, quite often, deep trauma, projecting that onto you just because they can't make it at 10 fucking 15.
Right.
And it's the sweetest, funniest shit ever. It was actually one of my favorite things. Comedians are hyperbolic. Many of them have no problem lying their fucking asses off. And especially when it comes to anything that could potentially keep them away from their beloved comedy. So they're going to lie as a survival tactic, right?
Right.
So anytime a new branch of the comedy tree pops up, there is either the group of comedians that is pro that branch of the tree. And so for them, that branch of the tree is like, oh my God, it's the flowering of the new spring, right? And then on the other side, it's like, it's the end. Yeah. This is destroying comedy forever. Yeah. But you'll never just see like, it's very rare to see like, it's just another form of comedy.
Right.
I don't understand it. Not necessarily what I would want to go see, but seems like lots of people love it. Yeah. You know what I mean? That's what that is.
Yeah.
That's what it is. That's what it is. But I think that it's not just like the emergence of this, what I've heard as Baptist liberals. Have you heard this term before?
No.
So it's like something has creeped in to political idealists that seems to be more than just like basic political stuff. Like, what are we going to do about the homeless in fucking LA, man? What's the plan there? What are we going to do about the fact that 1% of the population has all the money? What are we going to do about the fact that there's clearly like inequality happening that is most certainly based on how complected or not complected you are. Like, what are we going to do about that shit? It's real. If you think it's not real, come on. It's fucking real. It's real, right? All these are true, authentic problems. Yet, somehow mixing in with this is this new moralistic, condescending bend to it, which is like really sucks, because what's ending up happening is like the fucking signal, which is very real, which is like, man, I think we are connected enough right now where we could really solve some major problems in society in a way that doesn't have to like wreck somebody who's wealthy or like take from them or whatever, and simultaneously maybe like, you know, I bet we could figure out a way to do this shit if we all work together, right? Now what's happening is because of that weird moralistic bend to the message of, fuck, we need to fix some of this stuff. You dick. Do you not see?
Right.
Tony Hinchcliffe, it's time for you to fucking listen, man.
Yeah.
It's time for you to listen. That thing.
Right.
Where it's like, shit, man, I do want to listen.
Yeah.
And I do want to be refined in my blind spots that have inadvertently caused any kind of violence or harm in the world. But man, if you're going to fucking clap in my face while correcting me, I'm not listening to you anymore. Right. And that's what's happening, is too many faces are being clapped in.
Yeah.
You know? And that's like, you know, distorting reality in a pretty dark way, if you ask me. But I don't know, you know, because I have selfish tendencies. My own main concern is I don't want the goddamn sweet audiences to be soiled by something, you know, or like I always just thought it was like the stage was a place to be funny or to bomb, and like you're allowed to say whatever the fuck you want up there.
Yeah.
That's what I thought. That's how I was taught. That's what Mitzi was all about, you know?
Right.
And but that didn't mean that like there wasn't some consequence.
Yeah.
If she saw you up there and didn't like you and found you to be too crass or disgusting or misogynistic,
right,
or whatever, she would stop giving you spots.
Yeah.
And it would suck.
Yeah.
But there wasn't so much the potential for a beaker blowing up in your face to then lead to like deep, deep, deep consequences for you reverberating out through time, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, I've known I'm sorry, I'm going on a long rant here. I've known comedians for a long fucking time, man. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you, truly, some of them are really, 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 really sad, hurt, angry, manipulative people. Some of them. And some of them go temporarily crazy because they get, you know, it's like, you know, it reminds me of what would happen if like you like threw a machine gun to a chimpanzee or something when they get success. It's like they're just traumatized kids.
Yeah.
And suddenly they like get all this fucking stuff. And so they go, that's what Mitzi said to me once, is everybody goes crazy, honey. Because like they lose their minds for a second.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's...
And in that state of consciousness, they make decisions that are like irrational or ridiculous or whatever. But man, I have yet to meet like an actual fucking evil comedian. You know, I've yet to meet somebody who's like on stage spewing hate, who's on stage, you know, like intentionally like doing some weird, whatever is being projected upon them, like some intentional, like anything that's like really meant to like hurt some group or some gender or anything like that. Mostly what you're looking at up there is a kid at a slumber party who's had a lot of fucking Kool-Aid and is going to say the worst thing he can think of in the moment because he wants to simultaneously offend and entertain his friends or her friends. And that happens a lot, you know? But, you know, anyway, so for me, I'm always going to land on like team comedian.
Right.
Give them a fucking break. Like they're just trying shit out.
Yeah.
These people aren't throwing darts of like, they're not up there reciting Mein Kampf.
Right.
You know what I mean? They're not out there with the intention of like traumatizing a cancer survivor. You know, they're not up there with the intention of like crushing someone who's gone through some traumatic event. They're just in love with a style of art that sometimes involves saying shit that doesn't necessarily make them seem like they're on the cutting edge of sophisticated articulation of reality. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's all. It's like they're just trying some shit out. So to me, I don't know. I just worry over that because in the way that I was given the right to go on stage and do the most preposterous, ridiculous, horrific sometimes things. And I regret shit I've said up there, man. I truly do when I look back. Mm-hmm. I regret it, man. I've said shit on stage that like sucks with zero like thought about what, I remember, like, I'm sorry, I'm going on way too long. Forgive me, Tony. You're bringing it out of me.
Great. No, I love it.
Dude, as someone who is literally a fucking cancer survivor, mm-hmm. who has had radiation therapy, and also as somebody who, like you and like many comedians, went through what, I don't like saying it, but like, we had some rough childhoods, you know?
Yeah.
When I am in the audience and I see a comedian do a joke about cancer flippantly, who hasn't had cancer, and does a flippant cancer joke, I watch my mom die of cancer.
Yeah.
I do not like to watch commercials about cancer.
Right.
I don't like talking about cancer. I don't like to be reminded of cancer. Mm-hmm. So when I see a fucking comedian do a well-constructed, mathematically perfect, and to the audience hilarious cancer joke, it makes me feel bad, man. It reminds me of sitting in front of Dr. Pramal Desai and hearing that I was going to get one of my balls chopped off.
Yeah.
That being said, I would never in a million fucking years ever want a comedian to not say that joke on stage because they knew that I was a cancer survivor. Ever.
Right.
Ever.
Right.
I would rather just endure it and get triggered in the sense that I'm going to remember that sucked. I got my ball chopped off. I have one ball. When I get a cold sometimes, I wonder if I got fucking cancer. Right? Mm-hmm. But god damn it, man. The idea that my trauma should seep out into someone's art form and then make them not explore whatever the fuck they wanted to in an arena that's supposed to be based on pure autonomy and freedom. Well, I find that mortifying.
Yeah.
So that's my take on it, But that being said, when I get on stage now, I'm a little more sensitive. I do think about it a little bit more, you know, before I say a thing. I just want to make sure if I'm going to say the thing, it's like funny or I've really thought it through and it's not aggressive or based on some anger inside of me that's coming up. I don't know. Maybe that's weak.
No, I agree with you 100%. I don't really have anything that's like that to me. Like, I don't have anything that's sort of, I guess one thing I could relate it to is like, I guess like being in love. Like, I love my wife so much, and, it's a fairly newer relationship. We've known each other for like just over a year, and, it's one of those things to where like when I hear, a hacky reference to someone being like, oh, married, someone save me.
Yeah.
Like, it's like,
yeah.
It
gives you a little like, you don't understand love.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Sure.
And, but it's I mean, they should still do whatever they want. But it's like, if you're going to take that path of like talking about something, you got to really, make it, like you said, like mathematical and brilliant, and really take the time to have, surprise us and don't let us see it coming. You know what I mean? And disguise that punchline, and you know what I mean? Like, everything's got to be beautiful.
Or
Yeah.
slam into the cruel, hard wall of bombing your fucking ass off because you said some shit you didn't understand because you're a comedian, and comedians are fools.
Yep.
And fools know how to do something really well. And I'm an expert at it. Mm-hmm. I can read 7 sentences of any given thing and act like I am an expert at that thing. And I can say shit that I haven't thought out at all in a way that makes it sound as though I truly, truly believe it. And I believe it when I'm saying it. But in retrospect, I'll look back and be like, you didn't know what the fuck you were talking about. But I've always assumed, people have got to know. I don't know. Certainly I don't know. So like it's really funny to me. A reviewer sees a comedian and the comedian gets on stage and says an audacious, ridiculous, obnoxious, and absolutely hilarious thing, to the audience. It's like it's like pretty much if you were going to like try to win over an audience, that's like a risk. It's just a risk. Maybe they'll believe you, maybe they won't, but it's certainly like just ridiculous. You're a comedian. That's what you do. You say ridiculous shit.
Yeah.
And so for then a reviewer to hear you say that,
yeah,
and then act as though you were like reporting some historic fact and then go look it up, shows to me what maybe is one of the problems, which is like people are mistaking comedians for professors.
Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy. They're confusing comedians as anything other than just comedians. And I think that maybe because of podcasting, perhaps, like it's like because professional specialists on things have podcasts and comedians have podcasts, maybe they think,
That
there's
could
like
be
these
it.
weird little crossovers here and there that make me go like, how could they possibly think that we are doing anything other than making a joke?
We're fools, man.
Yeah.
And also, here's like the other piece of it, okay? Here's the other fucking piece of it, which is that because we're fools, to varying degrees, many of us would love for people to think we are fucking professors. It's like if you give a comedian, this is a trickster figure. And if you give them your power, if you give the power over to them, for me, it's a blast, but it's also terrifying. You're giving a fucking monkey a machine gun.
Yeah.
If you want to give them your power, that's a comedian. And so if you want to give them the power of being suddenly this thing or that thing, or you want to pretend, if you get around certain comedians and you start projecting onto them some kind of like reverence, they're going to take that reverence and they like it and they're going to distort it. And then they're going to start bending it right in front of you and doing weird shit that you don't even know they're doing. They're going to just start like doing weird things just because that's what they do. They distort reality. You gave them some power by putting them on a pedestal. And because you've put a fool/mystic thing on a pedestal, it's going to do what any fool/mystic reality distorting thing should do on a pedestal that you put them on, which is start in varying degrees, in varying ways, in many different flavors, making fun of the fucking fact that you were crazy enough to put a goddamn comedian on a fucking pedestal. Are you out of your mind? This person didn't study at fucking Princeton in political science. This person has not like gone to seminary school. This person has not like spent 20 years in the Amazon rainforest studying the arts of being a fucking shaman. This person is a fool. Literally. That's their job. And they're going to distort reality because that's what they do. They're just going to distort reality. But if you think behind that distortion, there's like a malevolent danger that could creep into society, then they're going to become that malevolent danger right in front of you because that's what they do. If they sense that, oh, you think I'm malevolent? Ooh, maybe I'll try that on for size. Let me be malevolent around you for a little while. Okay, now I'm diabolical, right? Now they're diabolical. Like, holy shit, I was right. Well, they're a fucking Satanist or something. My God, they're a diabolical Satanist. It's like getting in front of a funhouse mirror and then becoming offended because the funhouse mirror is making you look fat. You fucking fat shaming mirror. What the fuck's wrong with you?
Right.
It's a distortion field. You decided to get in front of it. And now you're mad at it.
Paid for it. You paid the entrance fee to get in front of it. They pay to go to the fun house, and then they get mad at what the mirror makes them look like.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like, what the fuck?
And then they go and they complain about it publicly. I paid to go to this fun house, and this is what the mirror did to me.
Yeah, a review.
Fun house, more like not fun house. That's
Yeah.
the headline.
More like fucking more like Nazi house.
Right. Yeah, exactly. It's got to be extreme.
Yeah. I went to this fun house. It wasn't really a fun. All the mirrors in this fun house were designed to amplify my body dysmorphia that comes from a horrific thing that happened to me when I was 9 years old. And I think the fun houses need to have more sensitivity to the fact that people with body dysmorphia might be coming through, and therefore they need to make sure that all their mirrors accurately reflect a human being. And if they don't accurately reflect it, then there needs to be limits on how fat they make us look.
Yep. And the rolly treadmill thing was too fast, and I couldn't keep up.
Yeah, that. Yeah, and I got scared by a clown.
Yep.
It's like clowns are meant to juggle. They're not meant to be scared. It's like this is unfortunately just a very ancient reality, which is there are always going to be in society smartasses, obnoxious people who not only don't care that they're going to offend you, but if they tried to stop themselves from doing this thing, they would want to put a gun in their mouth because that's just how they are. They can't stop it. They're always going to be like that, for better or for worse. It's just going to be the way they are, and I've always loved that about them, and it's been such a joy to be around it. You've roasted me before. And said, once you said, I can't remember what it was. You're making fun of some dumb jacket I was wearing.
You being serious?
It was great.
Oh.
It was wonderful. It's some moment behind the Comedy Store. You just casually walked by and like perfectly insulted a jacket I was wearing. Right? And it was true. It was fucking embarrassing.
Yeah.
You know, the jacket I was wearing was dumb. It deserved an insult, right?
Yeah.
But you did it in this loving, sweet, hilarious, yet simultaneous, like, cutting way.
Yeah.
And I've always felt when a comedian does that to me, a real sense of like being flattered.
Yeah.
That they think that I've been, that they're doing that to me. I've never felt like, man, they're really hurting me.
That
right
really
now.
is a thing that I think those people that get offended really don't think about, is the fact that we gave them that opportunity in the first place. We gave them the ball to run with it, not for our own satisfaction, but for theirs. Jeff Ross, the roast master general, right? He's on everything. They're doing historical roasts on Netflix, the roast battle on Comedy Central, the most watched program of the year annually in all of comedy is the Comedy Central roast. People like watching people get made fun of. And his whole mentality is we only roast the ones we love. And it's the backbone to everything. Like the people that make fun of people that they hate, it doesn't make sense. It's a bad energy. You're not getting anything out of that. It's torturing you, perhaps more than it ever tortures them, because they may never see it or find out about it or hear it,
right,
or listen to it. They might not ever let it affect them, but you spent this time and the production and all of this to make fun of this thing and to work on it, to put that energy towards it. And I guess my point is like people never really look at things that way. They don't ever look at it like how you just mentioned looking at it. And it doesn't have to be a professional comedian, and it doesn't have to be, maybe it's your stepdad who you think hates you. You know what I mean? Maybe it's him. He's trying to bond with you by saying, that phone, man, if you got paid for being on that phone, you'd be rich. It's like, shut up, stepdad.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like old man. But instead it's like, that's him trying to connect, trying to show love. And sure, it might seem like he's picking on you, but again, I guess it goes back to like, that's love.
look, it's like we just have to get a little better at listening for the signal, man, because like sometimes for sure someone like I have been in the presence of truly abusive people who are actively trying to hurt me on purpose because they wanted to have some power over me. That's real, and it's fucked up, and it happens all the time, and it's the worst thing to be in the presence of, especially if you're a kid. But at any time in your life, it's really, really bad, right? So that's real, and you know it. You know it, man. You know when that's happening. Mm-hmm. But thank Christ, most of the time, when people are like doing this thing or that thing, that sarcastic or whatever, maybe they're being lazy. Maybe you don't want to deal with it. It's okay. But quite often, behind that is somebody who wants you to like them.
Oh, God, yeah.
They just want you to like them.
Oh, desperately.
Yes. That's the big secret.
So desperately.
That's the big secret. And it's like, so for me, it's like, you know, I'm not saying give comedians a fucking break, because if you start giving comedians a break, they're not going to be as funny, because they're learning how to be funny based on your rejection of what's authentically not funny and what's authentically funny. Mm-hmm. But man, come on, let's like at least let them fucking blow themselves up in the laboratory that night. And maybe that doesn't have to follow them out of the fucking lab. Trust me, they feel bad. They're driving home and they're thinking about, some of them are actually really thinking about like, you know what, maybe tonight's going to be the night where I just say goodbye to existence itself. Because bombing fucking hurts, right? Yeah. And like it, but man, I don't know. I just love comedians. You know, I love them, all shapes, colors, sizes. I love them, most of them, not all of them. Actually, some of them. Fuck them. Yeah. But in general, I just want them to like, you know, to me, there's something that I hope passes, which is that I hope that we get to a point where at least like, where maybe comedians get a lesson in like, all right, maybe I don't need to necessarily get up there and start bugling some shit out there just because it's the very worst thing to say. Right. Maybe like, you know, get to that point. But I do hope we get to the point where audiences become a little more forgiving of these fools who, you know, just they're fools. That's all. Just maybe don't take them so seriously, you know?
It's crazy because, like, you watch the first ever Saturday Night Live, or you watch old Johnny Carson's and things like that, and there's a considerable amount more edge and risk-taking back then. A very large amount. You watch, you know, Archie Bunker or whatever, and then you compare all the stuff that you're seeing to today and how cleansed and pure and soft everything is, and you realize that maybe this is all going to come back around. Maybe it's like a stock market, and right now, you know, there's a downturn in edge and self-deprecation and touchy subjects. But I truly believe, and again, you know, I see it on the road. It's like people really need that. They really do. That's their escape. Some people need that type of hard humor, or, you know, I hate the word edgy, but it's like compelling humor in order for them to truly laugh and to get some joy. And so those people that are offended easily shouldn't try to ruin it for the people that aren't.
That's right, brother. Yeah. If I, like, let's say someone made a zoo, except it wasn't a zoo for animals, it was a zoo for lunatics, right?
Yeah.
And like, I don't know, it's so unethical to even think about it. But if I go and pay money to go to a zoo for fucking lunatics, and I realize that the people are actually not lunatics, they're pretending to be lunatics, I'm going to want my money back, right? And if I like am looking into a fucking lunatics, and again, I would never want this to happen, my God. I'm sorry for the lunatics who are listening. I'm a lunatic too, so I'm allowed to fucking talk about it. But like, if one of the fucking lunatics starts throwing shit at the fucking wall, or like writes "fuck you" in his own shit to me, I'm not gonna like write a letter to the lunatic zoo and be like, man, one of your fucking lunatics was really acting a little over the top. You know, that's all. But
I had one happen in Chicago. I got a call from my manager the other day, and they have comment cards at Zany's in Chicago so that you could fill out the comment card, you know, whatever you want. And I got a call on Monday from my manager, and he goes, we cover a bunch of things for like 5 or 10 minutes or whatever, and he goes, just to let you know, we got a report out of Chicago, an audience member, none too pleased. And I go, you've got to be kidding me. You talking about one of the comment cards? He's like, that's exactly what I'm talking about. And I go, the lady, first show, Saturday, second row with her mom. He goes, you said you were going to fuck her mother. And I go, I know. I'm freaking out, by the way. I'm passionate. He goes, don't freak out at me now, Tony. I go, no, I'm not freaking out at you. I'm freaking out about the time that we live in. Like, I knew. 6 shows, Jake. All of them packed. How did I know? Who? How do I know? Right. Who? When the lights are on me and I'm not supposed to.
Yeah.
They're the ones writing the report. So how do I know which one? How did I tell you which one? Because I know which one. And the thing that I was making fun of her about, the thing that started this, and the reason why I told her I was going to fuck her elderly mother, who was sitting next to her and laughing, was because she wasn't having any fun. I kept noticing from the very first minute all the way through, and I didn't acknowledge it until maybe, 25, 30 minutes into my set. I go, you're just miserable tonight, huh? There's just something about me. You just don't like any of this.
Yeah.
Because I've covered some wholesome subjects. You didn't like that. I've covered some, darker things. You definitely didn't like that. I haven't seen you smile this entire time. Meanwhile, this is your mom, I'm guessing? And the mom gave me an indication. Meanwhile, this lady's just looking at me with the stone cold eyes of, you know what I mean? Like, just like someone that hates you.
Yes.
And somehow it ends up getting all the way to me making fun of her for not having any fun, going to a comedy club and not enjoying yourself whatsoever. And I go, look at your mom. This elderly woman next to you is having so much fun.
Right.
Like, she's having a blast. She's laughing at me, making fun of you, her daughter, right now in front of a bunch of strangers. And you could pretend like you're, like, none of this is good, but the people all around you are laughing at you right now.
Yeah.
All of these people, do you hear them roaring? I mean, at this point, it's just pure momentum.
Right.
Right? And they don't even see her because it's Zany's. It's a long black box,
Yeah.
right? So she's in the front. They don't even need to see her.
Right.
All they know is that I know that she doesn't seem to be enjoying herself.
Right.
And she took it to that level, to where after all that and after all this, she wrote a thing. This comedian said that he was going to have sex with my mother. He badgered me publicly for not enjoying myself. Well, I have a right to not enjoy myself if I don't want to enjoy myself. Like, it's like after all that, after all of it, and after her elderly mom, I'm talking elderly, I'm talking 80s, 70s, 80s, late 70s, 80s. She was loving it. This old lady. Like, how can you not enjoy yourself? If for no other reason, your 80-year-old mother is sitting next to you laughing hysterically, if only for that.
Yeah.
Then how can you not be enjoying yourself?
Man, it's hard to exist as a human being on this planet, man. That's all. Like, it's like being a human's tough for people, and it's just, I think what could have happened accidentally is that people kind of got an idea about what comedy clubs are like, which isn't traditionally what they are, And also, though, we came out of a place where we were taught a certain idea about what it is, and within the place we came out of is produced like Sam Kinison. Mm-hmm. It produced a specific type of like an ethic that I think if you're lazy, you can excuse really shitty, angry, authentically crappy comedy as some kind of like outlaw comedy when it's not. You're just being lazy.
Right.
And I've seen that happen at the Comedy Store, where people say what I consider to be one of the most like depressing things to hear a comedian say is when they go, "Come on, I know you're not laughing because you're afraid to laugh." It's like, that's never happened. I mean,
Right.
never.
Yeah.
Like in firing squad situations, if a laugh is going to come out of you, you're going to laugh, man. No one at a comedy club is like, whoa, I better not laugh. I don't want people to think I think this is funny. It's because your jokes sucked.
Yeah. They
Right?
don't even have time to think about that.
Yeah. So I get it, man. It's like there is like a real potential if you go to a comedy show that some motherfucker is going to get up there and edgelord out and do something that's really violent or repulsive. But still, it's like, shit, man, I think that's just kind of the risk of going to these shows. Like, I would much rather risk sitting there and someone look at me and be like, oh, look at you, one fucking ball. What was that? You got your ball chopped off. Was that your mom fucking died of fucking cancer? Fuck your mom died of fucking cancer. You got what fucking... Try to do, like, all the things they could say, the stupid, lazy shit, right? I would much rather risk that moment than domesticate comedy.
Yeah.
So now when I go to comedy shows, like, everybody's kind of like, if I go to a zoo, man, I want to see a fucking lion.
Yeah.
Right? I don't want them to, like, put in like to make their fangs go away, or you know what I mean? It's just, so anyway, I don't know. We have to really I think it's a good time for people to really think about the consequence of demanding a kind of ethical, or I don't know what you would call it, demanding some form of like nuanced, politically sensitive comedy from people who, in my experience, are out of their minds in the best way possible. Mm-hmm. And you've like really gone through a lot of shit.
Yeah.
And to suddenly expect them to like, I don't know. Anyway, I don't want to we're repeating the same thing over and over again. The main thing is, I'm really glad to see you succeed.
Thank you.
And it's a wonderful thing to watch. And I think you're probably at the very beginning of it. Your podcast, your live podcast. I remember like, only because, I'm a recluse. I don't go out much these days. Mm-hmm. And I remember like you invited me to do your podcast. And I was thinking about Tony from in front of the Comedy Store.
Yeah. The door guy.
And I was thinking, all right, it's a belly room podcast. It'll be fun, a nice little intimate belly room podcast. I had not done any research at all. Mm-hmm. Followed you or anyone for that matter.
Yeah. And
I got to the Comedy Store. I'm like, where's Tony's podcast? Ooh, I thought it was in the belly room. Oh, it's in the main room. And then I remember like, I'm there with, what's his name? He's super famous. He's a wrestler. He's a Arquette.
David Arquette, yeah.
Fucking backstage with David Arquette.
Yeah.
Your show's sold out.
Yeah.
I've gone from being like, oh, it'll be a nice like casual belly room show to like shitting bricks, realizing like I'm about to get in front of this like a sold out fucking main room with David Arquette for your hyper successful podcast, and it was fun.
Yeah, thank you. And you were fucking great at it, man. It was
man.
it's so cool for me. I've always been like a cheese ball with you because, my religion, as cheesy as this sounds, as I'm calling myself cheesy, double cheese, my religion really is comedy. I really believe in it. I believe in figuring out a way to make people laugh, just to forget about their problems for a little bit. I think that's enough of a religion to get by. I went through a Catholic school growing up, and the teachers were always mean and very evil towards me. So my viewpoints on religion have always been really beat up and messed up from a young age. So I have always looked at comedy as this thing. So to get to have that type of bonding experience with you, because I was aware of what was happening too. I'm like, wow, this is like Duncan and I are going to get to actually do something together. And like, I really needed you there 11 years ago. I needed that little spark of inspiration. I needed someone to let me know that like it is still a cool place. There are cool people that hang around the Comedy Store. It's not just angry old bitter door guys and comedians that are just doing the same 15 minutes over and over again.
And people in pajamas climbing into like cubby holes of the building, which happens sometimes. That happened to me once, and I'm sorry to disrupt this wonderful thing you're saying, but once I watched a man in pajamas because of me, because I told him there were ghosts in the basement. A man in pajamas like skittered into this hole that you used to be able to open up by the original room.
That little hallway. I remember that.
And I had to like get him out of there because and like at the time the manager walked by and I had to shut the door on the guy in there because I didn't want the manager to know that I like accidentally lured a dude in pajamas into the fucking basement. Anyway, keep going, man. I'm very sorry to cut you off.
No, that was pretty much it, you know. And it's one of those things to where to get to show you and thank you because you were a real beacon of hope and everything
What an
for me.
honor.
I mean,
I'm
seriously,
honored by
one
what
of
you're
the
saying.
true original things. I really needed that at that time in my life, and you were there, and I give you a lot of the credit for my happiness and for this cool life and for everything that I've sort of done around me.
Thank you so much, man.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate that. And I kind of need a little work right now, so if you need anyone to open.
Oh my God, it's so funny.
Well, what you were supposed to say when I did that is like, actually, man.
I'm sorry, it's already booked. You're going to have to ask Jeremiah if he wants to take a weekend off.
Where can people find you?
TonyHinchcliffe.com. I got a lot of, we're touring both the live podcast and my stand-up, doing crazy double shows all throughout Texas, San Francisco tomorrow night. Still a few tickets left for the late show. We're doing 2 Kill Tonys tomorrow night.
Cool,
800 people at Cobb's Comedy Club.
Cobb's is awesome.
Yeah, and a lot of fun dates coming up everywhere. So I'm traveling all around Boston, Providence, all of it, Swansea, everywhere, Connecticut, Baltimore, Austin, Houston, San Antonio.
Just name all the fucking
Fort
states,
Worth.
all right? He's doing every state.
Dallas, New Year's Eve.
Dallas, New Year's Eve. Catch him live. And